In this video, I'm going to talk about security sections, which has been recently introduced within the Power Platform Admin Center. Now, what is the security section? So basically in Power Platform Admin Center on the left menu, you will see an option called as security. Now, basically what it does is it will give you the security postures of your organization. So basically it evaluates the security of your organization. Now there are three different types of settings over here. Now the settings are tenant based, so tenant settings. There's managed environment settings and general all environment settings. So these are the classification for the security consolidation basically provided by Microsoft. Basically what Microsoft has done is they have consolidated most of the security feature and then put it in one bucket, and then they have provided as a link. Now what all settings it consists of? It consists of settings for IP firewall, tenant isolation, auditing, customer logbox, IP address based cookie binding, data policy, environment security group, environment Azure VNet. Now this is how it looks. So basically in I remember in Microsoft Power Pages we have a security component whereby it gives you a gauge of where does your entire environment looks like in terms of security, like whether it's standard, enhanced or advanced. Now depending on the points which you accumulate, it will give you that gauge chart. Now there are various security features which are available out of the box, like in terms of IP firewall or tenant isolation or auditing or customer logbox. Now depending on how you have configured for your entire tenant, it will give you the rating for your security posture. Now let me show you in action what I meant. So I'm in admin.powerplatform.microsoft.com, and in the if you have the latest and the greatest of the version, then you will be able to see security on the left hand side. So if I click on security, it will give you a nice gauge of where does your security stands. So in my case it stands at an enhanced level, not at a standard level or not at an advanced level. Basically it gives me the security posture status. It gives me this recommendation. Now there are some recommendation which I can use to improve the security postures of my organization. Now it says address remaining recommendation to improve security posture. Now there are 32 recommendation for 16 of 24 environments. So it will give me the total environment as well. So I have 24 environment, and then it has 32 recommendation for the 16 of those environment, and one recommendation for securing your entire tenant. So as I mentioned to you, it gives you the information about your entire tenant. It gives you information about the managed environment. It gives you information about the all the environment in general. Now there are some blocks over here like 1 2 3 4, and then if you scroll down 5 6 7 8, so there are eight um, items which it has shown over here, like IP firewall, tenant isolation, audit, customer logbox, IP address based cookie binding, data policy, environment security group, and environments Azure VNet. Now, as I mentioned to you, these settings can be at a tenant level or it can be at an environment level as well. So now let me go in another tab to ppac Power Platform Admin Center, and let me pick one environment. So let me go into say Girish Preview US environment. So let me go into this environment, and I'll go into the settings area of that environment. So I'll go to the settings. Now the first item which we are looking at IP firewall. Okay, so if I go into settings, then I can navigate to features or privacy and security. So let me go into the security part. Now against every environment, if you just scroll down here, you should be able to see all this information like the content security policy or IP address based cookie binding, enable IP address based firewall. Now this is a thing which you are looking into. If I turn this on, then I can actually specify which IP address, IPv4 range should I allow for this particular tenant communication. Okay, now this is just one setting. So IP firewall. Now it has shown me that from a completion status perspective, it is 0% because I haven't enabled it for any of my environment. Now this is environment specific because I landed into one of the environment and I did the setting right from here. Now This is environment based setting. And also, if I click here, manage IP firewall, it says this feature is available for managed environments with Dataverse only. So if you have an environment which is a managed environment and which has a database of Dataverse, then only we will be able to configure it. And that's why it is only listing the managed environment over here. So what I can do, I can select this environment and then I can configure IP firewall. So if I click over here, what happens, it will take you to that specific environment, and then from that environment perspective it will navigate to the privacy and security area, and then you should be able to configure it. So it's like kind of one and the same thing, right? So I'll just leave this from here. Now, this is one option. So this is for managed environment. Then there is something called as tenant isolation. So it says restrict to or from cross-tenant connection established via Power Platform applications and flow. Now, impact is high, and recommended action is to enable the tenant isolation. Now, if I click on manage tenant isolation, now manage tenant isolation is not environment specific, but then it will give you a whole uh, uh, environment based or the tenant based setting, not an environment based setting. So tenant isolation basically let you restrict cross tenant connection when running Power Platform apps and flow. So we can enable tenant isolation, and we can also provide an exception rule. We can say that for some inbound or outbound connection, just follow this rule. So if I click on restrict cross tenant connection and if I create an exception rule, I can say for that specific tenant ID just allow inbound. For, say, if I have tenant domain ID, so let's assume I'm just putting some tenant domain ID over here. Okay, I can also select outbound of tenant ID over here. So I will allow all the outbound signals passing out from my tenant. And I can also specify inbound and outbound. So if I'm allowing both sided, then yes, I can allow it for that specific tenant. So in a nutshell, if I have 5 tenant, I can first restrict the cross tenant connection. I'll say I do not want any cross tenant communication happening, and I will say only for, say, specific tenant, just allow inbound and outbound, or just inbound or just outbound. That's it. So this is how I can set a rule. Now this is a tenant specific rule, so this is like not an environment specific rule, but you can specify an exception rule for your environment, and it will, once you set this up, it will give you this completion status as well. Audit is again based on environment based. So you can enable database audit to comply with your security policy. If I click on manage auditing, it is showing me all the environment, be it with the Dataverse or be it a managed environment, and then I can navigate to any specific setting, and then I can go to audit. Now you can also navigate to the audit just by going into a specific environment and going into the settings, and then from here you can go into audit logs, right? So that is, it's a multi-step process of clicking. So instead of doing that, what you can do, if you want to configure an audit, just go to the security setting, go into the specific environment, click on enable auditing, and then it will take you to this particular it will navigate you to the audit settings area for configuring the audit settings. So again, it's a quick way through which you can configure various settings. So from an audit setting perspective, that's fine. Let's go into customer logbox. Now again, customer logbox is basically when Microsoft returns to access customer data for troubleshooting and diagnostic purposes, you give that consent that whether you want customer to touch your environment or not with the customer data. And once you do that, it will go through the approval process. So again, it is like an entire tenant based setting. So it's not environment based settings. So you can just turn on or turn off, and then whatever is the pending request from Microsoft, you will see over here, and then you can see the request history based on your approval or denying request. So then the other option is IP address based cookie binding. So again, we have already seen that IP address based cookie binding over here. So if I go into any specific environment, go to privacy plus security, from here I can configure the IP address based cookie binding. If I turn this on for an environment, then I will be getting some sort of a completion status, and my security posture will be elevated to a bit of advanced marking. Now, then we have environment security group. Now, this is, as you see over here, it has shown me in 42 because I have configured environment security group for some of the environment. Basically, it allows you to configure the security posture by using security groups. Now there are security groups which you can use, like system customizer, environment admin, environment maker, depending on what scenario you want. Or maybe you can even create your own custom security group. Now if you want to click on manage environment security group, and if you select a specific environment, then you can assign a security group. Now the things which I mentioned to you, depending on the application or the use case, like if you're using Dynamics 365 customer service application, then it comes with predefined roles. Now I can assign the security group for an environment. If I click over here, then I can specify whether I just want open access, like none access, or I want a restricted access. Now it says restrict environment access to members of a security group, or select none to opt for open access. Now when you create a tenant, make sure that you assign a security group, because this is the most neglected configuration settings which people usually do not put. So if you want to restrict, say if I have a specific security group like say sec1, and I want to restrict this tenant to a security group, say sec3, I can do that, and I'll click on done. Now any user belonging to that security group will be denied access, right? So this is how you basically configure the settings. Coming back to the environments Azure VNet, this is a new feature. So protect traffic between resources inside your virtual network without exposing them over the public internet. So any traffic uh, uh, going through within the public internet, it will be like say any information which we pass from public internet to the say Microsoft network, we can protect that information. So as you see over here, it says protect traffic between resources inside your virtual network. So what happens is, like within the virtual network, the traffic will not be flown through the public internet, so it will have its own virtual network mechanism, and then we can configure it. So the concept like express routes or advanced configuration of settings, we can do that. Now 16 environments are not onboarded on Azure virtual network. It says the logged in user is not authorized, because I need to have a Azure subscription, and also I need to configure the enterprise policy. So I should have that valid license, and once I have that, I will be able to create that enterprise policy, and then I can make the environment more secure. So these are the basic set of configuration which we can use or navigate currently. So the benefit of using the security pane is you need not go into individual environment and then configure security. So as an admin, you get that whole glass pane view, and then you can actually see the completion status from here. And if you think that for a specific environment the owner has not defined any setting, you can navigate from here, check it, and then notify the owner or system administrator for that specific environment accordingly, and then get the security sorted out. So that's it, folks. This is all about how do you use security within Power Platform Admin Center. Thanks for watching.